of their correspondents had produced a piece basically comparing Trump to Reagan. And I said, well, yeah, it's true. Reagan did have Alzheimer's, and he was starting to demonstrate those effects his last year or two in office. People I knew that personally had met with him and said it was noticeable. But I said, the difference between Reagan and Trump is, people with mental disorders, some become very, they're still very nice people. Ronald Reagan was a nice person. He wasn't a vicious, hateful guy. Trump is.
Good one-liners.
Yeah, but he made a point of being bipartisan. He was friendly with Tip O'Neill. They had a great relationship. Whereas Trump is like developing a record for how many people he hates and hates him. The alienation.
It's beyond hate. It's like a vicious public display of hatred. He wrote a Truth Social post about Thomas Massey and his late wife, and then his new wife. Like he went out because someone disagreed with him on the budget and Israel. He attacked a man whose wife had just passed away, and just didn't care. He turned on Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was like a ride or die Trumper, whose one, I don't know if his son or daughter, one of her children had death threats, and he's like, "That's your problem." I mean, that's vicious. It shows the inner person, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's. But the other part was Reagan, at least as you said, surrounded himself with competent people. Trump is not. Trump surrounds himself with sycophants who are going to, kiss his ass, tell him what a wonderful guy he is, tell him how great he's doing, and even that doesn't buy you security. Trump will turn on you in a heartbeat. And again, look, I attribute a lot of that though to what's going on in his prefrontal lobes, that deterioration, because I have experienced that with other. I was very good friends with Walter Patrick Lang, Pat Lang. He had the blog Sic Semper Tyrannis, and as he is, after he got the COVID vax, he changed. I mean, his
I have a T-shirt with that slogan on it and a picture of Lincoln with a hole in his head.
Oh, oh
Then I got another one. It says Sic Semper Tyrannis, and it's the tumor on John McCain. Go ahead, though.
No, just pointing out that Pat in his last year, man, he was lopping off people that had been friends, and he just became short-tempered and lost reason. So I've seen that before, and there's a little bit of that in Trump.
I think McCain had it his last few years too. Yeah. He would just be cursing at the walls. I saw him in the Senate in the Hart Building, and he's surrounded by his people, but he was just like dropping F-bombs at nobody. And I thought, wow, this guy's nuts. He's so in there. Just,
yeah, no,
like one John McCain meeting. Oh man, if he had known who I was.
Well, and so you're watching Trump with his Iran policy, I jokingly say I've got to put on a neck brace because all the whipping back and forth trying to follow it, I just, it's like getting whiplash.
There's a Lord Loomer joke in there, but I'm not going to say it.
Oh my God! Well, yeah, I mean, let's be candid.
Bobbing up and down like Tyson's speed bag. All right, okay.
Yeah, but if he was able to sustain an erection with a face like that, looking up at him, good Lord,
Liquid Viagra couldn't hold that up.
Yeah, man.
I guess when you're a chode, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Gosh, he did say like, "Oh, my hands were cold, and the president warmed my hands." It was such a Zog whistle. No wonder his third wife doesn't want to stay in the same building, doesn't sleep with him. She was part of this crew. I've got Prince Andrew on my shirt today. We got a little hidden guy right here holding pizza. This is no longer for sale. They wouldn't let me. That whole company got canceled, actually, so I tripled down. But this is the Epstein crew. And Melania was introduced to Trump through Pervert Polly and Epstein and John Casablanca, who, along with Jacques Madé and then later Jean-Luc Brunel, were running their own pedophile ring before Epstein had even graduated high school. So that wasn't something he created. It was a pre-existing network that he stepped into with Maxwell's. Anyway, I'm not going to go on and on that, but this is the Epstein thing. But this is Epstein fury. It seems like somebody has got Trump by the shorties because he's not listening to anybody rational. And like you said with the whiplash, got out ESPA. he's like, it's open, close, open, close. We're going to send destroyers in. Actually, Operation Freedom's on a pause. And then today he went in again. And then he came out again.
Yeah, actually, this has happened all week. It just hasn't, I learned it just hasn't been reported. So I talked with someone who's involved. And they said, yeah, this like happened yesterday. It happened the day before that. It happened the day before that. So, these are more like symbolic exchanges, nothing really heated yet. But before we go on to that, I wanted to ask you, remember that Melania's friend of 25 years who came out and said she was going to spill all the beans? And then she just went radio silent. Did they kill her? Because she's certainly not talking like what she promised to talk
more
about.
Likely they bribed her to shut her mouth. But I came out with it anyway, so you don't have to wait on her. Like, she ain't the only source. This stuff's well known. Well, it's not well known. My circle, it's well known, but I'm not allowed on anything other than a Nerf Twitter and Substack. So it's hard. It's hard for me to get on shows because people run around behind my back and call me Holocaust and iron and tell them I eat Jewish babies or whatever. And it's, I don't know if you've seen, like, I've lost $440,000 from Stripe. That's what they owe me. I'll never see that money. Kicked off PayPal, kicked off Patreon. And I'm like, why am I being targeted? I'm not the size of Alex Jones. I don't have millions of people. And the reason is this, because I know this issue. I got on it early, and they want to shut me up. And this is what happens. So I would imagine step one, before they kill you or anything like that, because she came out so publicly, and, if anything happened to her, it would look really bad. The smart thing to do would be offer her a bunch of money and say, shut your mouth. And almost everyone takes that deal. They'll take the money and sign an NDA and disappear. So, and that's like a lot of the victims too. They're being paid $20,000 a month. That's pretty nice, and we know because of the lawsuit against the banks, and they did have to pay out hundreds of millions. By the way, Bank of America, $72.5 million they have to pay. That's in addition to the hundreds of millions from Deutsche Bank and Chase Morgan. And so JP Morgan Chase, excuse me. Jess Daly still being sued. So is Stacey Plaskett. We got the lawyers coming, Darren Endike and Koss coming, and Khan, all in August. How they delayed till then, I don't know, but that's what's going on. But you can see it because the Adelsons and all, they're the ones that are pushing Trump into this mess. They're the ones that got him to tear up the JCPOA. And it's a I don't know if hilarious is the right word, like whatever the opposite of hilarious is, like tragic, but in a funny way. He's trying to get what he already had. He basically wants the Iran deal, but he can't call it that. He wants the straight open, which was already open before you attacked him. And he wants to deal with the uranium, and that already, like, if he could just get back to how it was on February 27th, it'd be fine.
Yeah.
But then, of course, why did we need a JCPOA? Why were there sanctions on Iran at all? Because of Israel. Everything is because of Israel, including these.
Well, in Israel, they exaggerate the Hamas and Hezbollah linkages to so-called terrorism. These are groups that are they have a religious foundation, but they're fighting for their own land. They're what our ancestors in the American Revolution were doing against the Brits. So,
there were suicide bombers from Japan. We call them kamikaze. It wasn't for religion. It was, because you're attacking them. And that happened. Suicide bombings didn't exist until after the Nakba. And as far as Hamas and Hezbollah, those organizations didn't exist till the 80s, 82 and 87. So, they're reacting to Israel consistently attacking Palestinians and consistently attacking Lebanon. Hezbollah was formed as a reaction to Israel invading Lebanon. They always start the story in the middle and act like, we're going in after these terrorist groups. Right. Well, those groups didn't exist until after you had occupied, ethnically cleansed, and stolen land. Then they formed as resistance to your terrorism.
Right. Yeah, Israel helped spin up the civil war starting in 1975 in Lebanon, and then Hezbollah hit the scene in 1982. So, hey, let me give you a fun fact comparing 2000 to 2025. In 2000, the number one bank in the world was Deutsche Bank. Hence their power. And guess which country had 5 banks in the top 10?
Isn't real.
Japan. Japan had 5 of the top banks, top 10. Now, in the top 10, Deutsche Bank's gone. Mitsubishi Bank is the only one left of Japan. The other 4 have fallen out. China's got 4. They occupy the top 4 positions, followed by Bank of America. Gee, there's another one of those, Epstein ties, and JP Morgan Chase. So, clearly, Epstein and his affair, it's not a coincidence that he was using the most some of the largest banks in the world.
Well, he helped bribe regulators when they stole from the Malaysian Sovereign Wealth Fund, like Edmund de Rothschild Bank, and we have their communications out, them begging Epstein to get him off. And he kind of did. They only ended up paying $75 million. Now, it'll say $25 million if you Google or AI it, but that's because that was installment one. It ends up being 75, but still, that's nothing. Like Goldman Sachs had to pay $5 billion. Okay, so contrast that to 75 million. Yeah. It does nothing. And but it's like, why do you think Epstein can get you this deal? What kind of leverage could he possibly have? You know what he had. And he was the untouchable. It was really his organization. He's a front man. They don't. I always compare him to John Gotti, but he always put the limelight on himself. Problem was he dipped in his own stash. He engaged in the kiddie fiddling himself, and that was his downfall. But stupid too. He has all these girls from modeling agencies and things. He's got a human trafficking ring set in place. Wasn't enough. He had to go hunt locally and get them even younger. 14-year-olds right out of high school. Very Robert Miller-esque.
What was his extent of his relationship with the United Arab Emirates?
He had a lot of sheikhs on his part of his clientele. The thing is, those guys already operate their own, I'll call them prostitution rings, because they'll say escorts or whatever. They'll have rape yachts, but it's not actually illegal. Like, they buy prostitutes and poop on them and do all kinds of crazy stuff on their little voyages, but they pay them. And it's all like, hey, you took the money for this and that. And they're very careful not to get underage, at least openly. But he had so much dirt on them. But I think the debauchery is not what was going on. Everyone assumes, sexual blackmail. I'm like, no, they all did that before Epstein existed, and they were going to keep doing that. And they don't need him to teach them how to buy an escort. It was more of the money laundering. And it's not like they don't know how to launder money on their own either. It's like, well, if you do it through Epstein, you're left alone. Because he has Clinton. That's what was special about Epstein. Wasn't that, he had some complex way of hiding the money. It's no. If you do crime with him, they won't go after you, because he's got the top donor class is his list. And that's more important than Bill Clinton, is having these Jewish billionaires, because they're the ones that finance everything else. Every congressional run, you're seeing it right now with Thomas Massey. Yeah, it's Paul Singer and Adelson and the list. That's who's backing it. It's UDP. Nowadays, AIPAC is not the flagship. It's too hot. The AIPAC is still giving money, but that money is really their money anyway. But it's these other lesser known entities that are pushing it through, and they've put in millions of dollars to beat Thomas Massey, and he's within 1 point now. And usually, it's a landslide victory for incumbents, and he might lose because they put it all.
Well, I'm hoping that he's just being smart and downplaying it and lowballing it, that I'm in trouble, in order to motivate people to get out.
I think he's just telling the truth. He did get a money bomb with Tucker Carlson. That'll help. But he's got like 12 days left, I think. Yeah. And this really is a war on the Epstein class. Like, if Thomas Massey wins, it'll prove, look, AIPAC, UDP, Christians for Israel, all the affiliate groups that Graham Smith talks about, they all lost, because they are openly all in, and they want him to lose, and so does the president. And if he wins, it's like, look, you're beatable. And it also shows the public, this is what we want. But a very interesting stat in the younger crowd, young meaning like under 35, he's got like 85%. It's ridiculous. It doesn't even look like a real number, he said. Like, he's crushing it. And the difference is they're getting news from you, and me, and people like that are not watching TV. Yeah, they're getting Judge Napolitano or Nemo or whatever. Like, they become where people go for news. Oh, by the way, how do I know you're really Larry Johnson? I've seen such great AI slop that how do I know?
Yeah,
you really can't tell.
I had my dog come over. Actually, you can usually, the AI so far has trouble with the eyes, forehead, and they can't get a voice like what I just did, a pause, searching for words. No, it's very flawless and seamless. And sometimes I'm thinking, man, I wish I could talk like that. So
that's what Colonel Wilkerson said. He goes, it was beautifully written, but I didn't say any of it.
Yeah. So, I take that as a form of flattery. Say, gee, it must be effective because they're having to go through the AI route.
Well, it's showing also like that clickbait want to grab you. I've seen it with Scott Ritter. I've seen it with Colonel Wilkerson. They know that's who people want to listen to, because you can't trust anything from CENTCOM, Axios, Truth Social. They're all liars constantly, and so they're looking for it. I'll show you this. Like AI, I did this. I'm admitting I did this to prove that this can be done. Right? That's just an example. I did that just to prove I can. Right? I'm like, you guys, stop simping, stop sending people money. You don't know who you're talking to. I can make that character or anyone else that could have been your face, and I can make it talk, and I can clone their voice. And I'm not a tech person, and even I know how to do that. Andrew Tate courses, by the way, cheap plug, but like, you go in the real world, you can learn how to do that. So you got to be careful what you're looking at. You don't know who you're talking to or anything. You almost have to see if you're watching YouTube, like make sure that's the judge's show or Nima's show or Danny or whoever, like that's not some copy of something.
Yeah, very much.
Otherwise, you're probably looking at AI slop.
And particularly, they came out and said like 3 aircraft carriers were sunk, and I was getting notes. Oh, did this happen? I was like, no. Please. I noticed you're going for the Andy Warhol look.
And, well, usually you have one of these, but I went with the Ric Flair look during WrestleMania weekend. I got my bleach blonde hair, kind of sick of it already, but because people complained about it, I kept it because that's the kind of contrarian I am.
Right, yeah, it's very Andy
Flair was
Warhol.
not allowed at WrestleMania. He had some beef with another wrestler. If Ric Flair says he's going to bleach your hair, you can't say no. I don't care. I can dye it back anytime. So I love Ric Flair. He's in his 70s as well, and he is very high wired. High energy in that guy. I want to be like that if I reach that age. I hope so. I want to have that level of energy. He just doesn't. I'm like, he's not on drugs either. He was built like that.
Yeah,
Flair.
Yep. Punching along.
He'll go in a bar and buy everyone there a cocktail, and you just have to because Ric Flair did it. He doesn't slow down. He doesn't drink much now, but anyway, yep. This also separates. My brother's been getting on TV a lot more and stuff. He's going to be on Netflix soon. So
really? Well, that's cool.
With his colony research, yeah, he found the lost colony. There's a lot of BS on that one too. It's just, I get it with September 11th. You got all the kooks with the bombs on the building and stuff, and I have to deal with that. And he has to deal with the people talking about dare stones, or maybe they went west, or acting like they don't know what Croatoan means. And it shows you how much of history is just handicapped by the entertainment industry, where they make things mysteries that aren't. Like Stonehenge, the pyramids, none of those things are mysteries. But it's so profitable to keep them mysteries and act like we can't figure it out. That's what most people assume. And it makes me question everything. Like a lot of things in science that they say are unknown, if you really look, it's like, that's not true. Like they knew about the asteroid or the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs back in 1981. They already had everything settled. But it took till probably another 20 years before they finally got people to sign off on that, and the public understood it, because it was just, what killed the dinosaurs? It's so fun to have a mystery. And once you have an answer, they don't like it. They didn't like that with the Kennedy shootings. Like, I have proven who shot JFK and RFK. And people see that, but they love talking about maybe he was going to end the Fed, maybe this, maybe that, and all these alternatives. I'm like, this is stupid. This is not even a difficult mystery at all.
Well, yeah, particularly
so
the bullet that they allegedly killed Kennedy with, if that had actually been fired from the Carcano, his head exploded, but there wouldn't have been much of a head left at all. It would have been
well, the one that Jack Ruby placed in the gurney in the hospital was just placed there. That looked like it was fired in cotton or something. But I just I've almost given up on it. I'm like, I don't know why I put all this effort in and made all these films and things, because along comes Alex Jones or Candace Owens or something saying nonsense, and it's just like, it is such a huge megaphone that what I said just gets lost in the ether. I have to wait for them to go away before I can say the exact same thing I've always said. People are like, you know this? You do Thane Caesar work for Alessio? I'm like, yeah, I'm why you know that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you know Ziad al-Jarrah had cousins in the Israeli intelligence? I'm like, yeah, I said that in 2001. It's frustrating, and we're seeing it now. Though I think we're getting ahead of the curve. There was never a time period, if I go back to Gulf War I or even the second Gulf War in 2003, there was no YouTube. You couldn't go in and hear Larry Johnson or Scott Ritter or Wilkerson or Friedman, or you could. sometimes you guys were on TV, but it was like, you know, you couldn't get these long form discussions about what was going on.
It was 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops.
Right. And it was like 3 against 1 and stuff like that. And no one was talking about it. No one could talk about it. And I remember thinking, I wish I could talk to that person that seemed to tell the truth for a minute or two. I wish there was somewhere I could say things about the Office of Special Plans. Remember Justin Raimondo was writing about it on antiwar.com. He laid out everything. But you'd have to go to antiwar.com and read Justin Raimondo. And you know how many people were doing that compared to just watching Bill O'Reilly screech on Fox or any of them. CNN, they're all just as bad. Wolf Blitzer, former APAC employee, who's now doing the Situation Room. He was prancing about during shock and awe.
Yeah, I've known Wolf. Good Lord, first dealt with him back in 34 years ago when I was at State. I was I was the one-man task force that night. We were still working on the hostages being released out of Lebanon, and they just got the Reverend Terry Weir had just been released, and it was late at night, and Wolf calls into the State Department and they patch him through to me, and he was saying, "Oh, we've heard that they had a chip, a computer chip planted on him," and this is really before computer chips were much of a
lie. Yeah.
But we had some sort of transponder that we knew where he was all the time. And I said, Wolf, if we'd known where he was, we would have tried to go in and get him. We didn't know. That's the point. And so then a few minutes later, he says, according to State Department sources. And so that's where I learned, oh, that's how this game works. He talked to me and then it comes out on the television.
There was a great debate with Norman Finkelstein and Wolf Blitzer, where Wolf is showing his colors more. He's like so ardently pro-Israel in that debate. And Finkelstein wiped the floor with him. I think it was Buckley was somebody pretty prominent moderator as well. I don't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, I'm like, who saw this? It's on the internet way deep down, but you'd have to know it exists to even attempt to look for it, and that's the problem. But I think the press is getting better, and that's why Trump seems like the worst president ever. But he's nowhere close. I mean, Clinton and Bush killed millions, a million, and Obama hundreds of thousands with Syria and Libya, and Trump's killed into the low thousands. I mean, that's bad, but he's nothing like what we used to have to deal with. And,
well, true.
But economically, he's doing the most damage. That is just explain to people the lag time, because I don't think people understand oil futures versus how much that actually costs on when you load it, and also that there was already some oil in the pipelines and on the boats that has been delivered, but there's nothing behind it. You talk about that a little bit, like, how long do we have before we really see the increase?
So let's make it simple that your water was shut off on February 28th, but you had a bathtub that was filled with water. So you're flushing the toilet every day by dipping into that bathtub with a bucket, pouring it in. So you can keep flushing the toilet for, let's say 7 weeks. But then there comes the moment that the water's still not turned back on, and now you're out of water in the bathtub. That's exactly what we're going through right now with oil. The financial markets are crooked. They're like a crooked casino, where the house is, they've loaded the dice. They've got a roulette wheel that can be controlled, stopped and started at will. They're cheating on the deal at the blackjack table.
It's like Carl Icahn versus Jim Cramer in poker, and they both had a royal flush.
Yeah,
they both had 4-of-a-kind aces.
Yeah,
that's more accurate.
Yeah, how does that work? So the oil that was loaded onto ships and then set off to sail the mighty seas, traveling at the speed of roughly a bicycle, going about 10 miles, 12 miles an hour. And so it's only in the last about a week ago that those ships that were filled with oil that had been on the seas since the 28th of February were finally getting offloaded. And so when those ships pulled into port, even though the oil futures market says, the Brent crude is worth $94, the reality is if you got Brent crude on board that ship and you want to take it off, you're going to have to pay the market price at the time, the actual market price, which is like $140, $160. Singapore did one offload for like $215 5 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing, I'm increasingly obsessed with Consider these numbers. We've had 20% of the world's oil now shut off. 25% of the world's liquid natural gas shut off. The urea for fertilizer, 35% shut off. Helium, 30% of the world's demand for helium comes out of the Persian Gulf, shut off. And then sulfuric acid, which is a critical component, both helping make fertilizer and doing some other things. But when you put all, we've never in history ever been faced with this kind of commodity shortage for so long. Nothing. We don't have any recent or distant history that matches up to it, and yet people are oblivious. You try to tell them, and they just wave you off. No, that can't be true.
Well, what's the price per gallon in Florida right now?
402. That's with my BJ's Club discount. It's actually 417 for the regular guys.
Oh, Lindsey Graham's in a BJ Club.
Yes, but he didn't get a membership card.
He's in a different BJ Club. You were talking about the speed of a bicycle earlier, and it reminded me. Ron Paul, 90 years old, still rides a bike. It's amazing.
Oh, really?
Lindsey Graham does too, but his doesn't have a seat.
Well, if you ride, I don't recommend riding bikes in Florida because you got enough people older than me that run them over. Not intentionally, but they run them over.
I'd argue riding a bike in Florida is exciting.
Well, that's true.
It's like playing Frogger.
Yeah.
IRL Frogger.
You're taking your life into your own hands. So this is
what was it before? So what'd you say? 404.
254. So the 27th.
404 now. So basically, one Ukraine worth of.
That's if you're a BJ's member. The reality is, if you just pull up the regular gas station, it's 449 Wawa today.
449. All right. So
yeah.
And so in California, that would just be normal. So what was it before the war?
254.
254.
On 27 February, the day before the war started, it was 254.
So and that might have been anticipating the war's about to start too.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anybody really anticipated that the Strait of Hormuz would get shut down like it has been.
We did. Pepe Escobar and I talked about that back in 2014. We said if there's ever war with Iran, this is what they're going to do, and they can. And they've been red hat exercises proving they can do that.
Right.
They should have all known that was going to happen.
Well,
these morons think they can reopen it. Trump is still, you can tell he's got a bunch of civilian morons telling him advice because he'll we'll just destroy their Navy and reopen the strait. It's not the ships that close the strait, it's the land batteries.
Right. And so, again, I emphasize, compare 1987 when we did the oil escort operations in the Persian Gulf, that Iran retaliating against the West for its support of Saddam Hussein in waging war against Iran. Hussein got chemical weapons from the West, or at least the precursors to make them. Also got some biological weapon material. And so Iran tried to mine the Strait, the Persian Gulf, and failed. They were ultimately defeated by a small group of Navy SEALs. A buddy of mine commanded the unit. It was called the Hercules Barge. So jump ahead to today.
Well, isn't that why they're on Karg Island? Because Iraq invaded they were vulnerable in the land from Iraq. So it was.
Well, they did. They went, Iraq borders Iran. So they were attacks there, but they never penetrated far into Iran, which is a reminder of how difficult it is just because of the terrain. And then with mountainous terrain, trying to keep everybody resupplied, moving forward. That was then. Now they've got mines like before, but in addition, they've got mini submarines, at least 3, that they carry torpedoes. They've got underwater drones. They've got surface drones. They've got bog hammer speedboats with missiles that are crewed by human beings. And then
they've got ballistic missiles too. I mean,
well,
it's the speed of a bicycle and it's covered in, it's carrying oil. It's a pretty easy target to hit. I mean, even from a mile away.
You also have drones. You have coastal defense cruise missiles. You have intermediate range and short range ballistic missiles. So I mean, they got a whole arsenal now, and that to open the strait so that anybody can sail through without fear of being hit or shot or blown up. That would require a massive military operation that we are not politically willing to do. It would be it would lead to tens of thousands, if not more, American lives lost from trying to fight their way into Iran.
Did you see a Korean ship got hit and Trump immediately ran out and said, "Oh, South Korea ought to join us in reopening the strait"? But Iran denied hitting it. And
yeah, there have been false flags with Israel in particular.
I think that's what happened. It was the HMM, if anybody, one of the HMMs, and 24-person crew, 6 Koreans, no casualties. Something went off on the port side. Wasn't a drone, wasn't a missile. And they're saying, well, maybe a mine went adrift. Well, there's no storm or anything like that. So I asked around, like, really, a mine went adrift right in the middle of Operation Promise Freedom or whatever he called it, and hits a Korean ship. Right. They're investigating it. As of 7 hours ago, they said they're cooperating and they're investigating what happened to this Korean ship. I did hear some intel from some people that the U.S. tried to set up a screen, and this is why the destroyers went in there, and they were actually trying to use civilian ships to get men on the islands. Have you heard anything like that?
I have not. If they get men on the islands, it's a death sentence for those guys.
That I know.
How do you keep them resupplied? They don't have any kind of cover that is defensible and impregnable from missile strikes and drone strikes, for that matter.
So it's the same thing of going in the strait at all. Your boats are vulnerable. They'll get fired on from all sides. Like, why even going in there? Who's coming up with these plans?
Well, that's they're not really following a plan. I mean,
you're not even wrong.
So let me read you. I got this from a buddy, and I'd asked him. I said, I think we're going to put Trump's going to put attacks on hold until after his meeting with Xi Jinping in China. And my friend wrote back. He goes, "Dude, I've literally been in meetings where the one star comes in, sits down, and is like, well, I was going to brief the operations plan, but in light of the president's most recent social media posts, we're going to table that and wait for new guidance." So no, there's a lot of confusion right now about what the next steps are and what is going on. There's no strategic vision here, no clear strategy of any kind. Our objectives have changed like 7 times. So that I think is an accurate picture of what's going on.
Well, who's calling the shots and doing all these, like Homer Simpson, curly straight, like, we're going in, we're not going in, we'll take an island, we won't take an island, or we're going to release the Kurds, okay, maybe not. But are they just playing market yo-yo, or is that's just a coincidental, like they're just incompetent and the market's yo-yoing?
No, it's Trump. It's Trump with a clear mental deficit with this early stages of frontal lobe dementia. So he's one minute he makes one decision, next minute he makes the exact opposite, contradictory decision, and he doesn't see it as contradictions.
So you're saying something happened to him that made him think like a woman?
It's worse than that, man. Worse than that. Again, a woman who can't remember anything for what happened an hour ago.
Well, hopefully, unlike a female, he'll have accountability, but I doubt it. We really are at the whims of this fat orange maniac that shouldn't be there. And I'm wondering what Vance and people like that are thinking. Like, how do you get rid of him? How do you prevent him from making a very embarrassing naval assault? Like, if he just orders them in, do they have to go? Is there any way they can be like, no, sir, we're not doing that? Or just tell them you did it and you won?
They could. No, absolutely.
Give him a big medal.
That's what they're trying to do is let him take the win, so-called, and then turn his eyes to Cuba. You can they think they can get a quick victory there. I would raise questions about that. They may very well not be able to do that. So, what's been exposed are the limitations of U.S. power. People were so accustomed to the United States being able to roll in, get its way. We take out Gaddafi, we take out Manuel Noriega, we've taken out Maduro, we'll do the bulk stuff. And, we'll just say, look how strong we are. And the fact is, we're not that strong. It's been exposed. We have to keep most of our ships 200 miles off the coast of Iran, because if they get any closer, they're going to get attacked and possibly sunk. Ground operations, completely out of the question, because,
they can't even hold on to bases in Iraq.
Yeah. Well, and sending in, let's say you could send in 50 SEALs, a number of, you send in 3 or 4 squadron of Delta Force. What are they going to do? And they can only carry enough ammunition for like a day and a half, 2 days max. Those a full can a conventional military can for ammo weighs well over 40 pounds. So having to carry that, or like carrying it through water and such.
Well, I think it was you that pointed out they don't even have an Army commander chosen. It's just
right. Yeah, because right now the command structure is you got CENTCOM at the head, Admiral Cooper. They call him the Joint Forces Commander. Then you have Combined Forces Maritime Component Commander, and then you have Combined Forces Maritime Component Commander, but you don't have a similar one for ground operations. So until such time as they appoint someone like that, I don't think you're going to see any ground operation. Thank God.
I don't think you could do that logistically without it being seen anyway. Like, where would what's the staging area going to be? Saudi Arabia or something? Like what?
Yeah. Well, and that's the point. 23 years ago, we staged 165,000 troops in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. And they've Saddam fired maybe a scud or two, but nothing of any consequence. Soldiers were safe, and then they launched that invasion. The one I've become increasingly intrigued with, thinking back, Saddam was our bitch for 9 years, from 1980 through 1988. He was part of a CIA covert action plan to destabilize the government of Iran and overthrow it. Even back then,
they were grooming him since '68.
Yeah, and so in 1989, when he's seen Kuwait's basically stealing oil from Iraq as far as he's concerned, and he goes to April Glaspie, the ambassador, and says, "Okay, hey, we're gonna take care of this unless you tell us you got a problem with it." And the basic answer that came back was, "Hey, not our problem, and we're not going to take any position on it." And he said, "Okay, that's a green light."
And then you get Tom Lantos and crew talking about babies on incubators.
Yes.
Naira, Hill and Milton, coach, daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador. And more lies. The irony is babies on incubators were actually killed in Gaza by the Israelis. That did happen, but no movement there. So Trump's talk in China, I mean, allegedly he was supposedly originally going there to talk about rare earth and tariffs and things. What's he doing now? They must be talking about the Iran conflict. How could that be avoided?
China, again, I remain skeptical whether the trip will actually come off, because China's been pretty assertive this week, telling their
no sanctions. We're not doing it.
We're not doing U.S. sanctions anymore. Ignore them; they're meaningless. And then Iran announcing, "Hey, we'll accept a payment for our oil in rial and or yuan." But Iran
pretty dark times when someone like me is cheering for China, but I am. Yeah. I'm like, hey, say no to sanctions. Stand up to the U.S. Do it. I saw a turnabout with Saudi Arabia, too. They're like, you can't use our airspace. Okay, now you can. Well, that didn't even last a day.
Yeah. And then supposedly they've reversed course. At least that's the word today. Oh, they've come around. They recognize they need to help us. Now, this is what we're witnessing is the destruction of the old economic political order. And part of that was based on international law, which the U.S. no longer accepts. And the emergence of this new thing, because note both China in their conversations with Foreign Minister Araghchi, as well as Putin in his conversations with the Iranian Foreign Minister, they both China and Russia use the same language, developing a new security architecture in the Gulf. So that tells you right off the bat, Xi and Putin, they're coordinating. They're probably much closer than many people realize.
I think so. Well, I'll read my calendar quote and let you. I know you're on a million different shows, so I'll let you get in. So here's from A&C. Today, this month's quote was from me. I only did one, but it happened to be from A. When poison is made to taste like honey, the fool will fight to keep it. The alcoholic clings to his destroyer like a baby bottle. The scroller feels naked without their phone. Take away their constant virtual reality and drugs, and most people are bored with who they are, for they are no one, and unsatisfied with real relationships, for they have made none. So back to the noise they will go, cursing anyone who interrupts them. Self-deceivers will always hate the one that tells them the truth, for truth violently destroys the falsehoods they have made their identities.